Welcome to Michael's Kids Club Camp Creatology. Today we will create clay animals to add to terracotta pots. Join us for all 10 days of making. Enjoy!
Hi everyone, my name's Megan and today we're going to make terracotta clay pots. We have 3 different pots for you to choose from. You can make an adorable elephant, you can make a majestic lion, or you can make a snake. So you can make all 3 of these, or you can pick your favorite and make that one. I'm going to show you all the materials that you'll need to make the 3 clay pots. So first of all, if you're going to make 3, you're going to need 3 terracotta clay pots. For all of the different creatures, you're going to need some Model Magic. You're going to want some acrylic paints. And every time you have acrylic paints, you're going to need some paintbrushes. You might also want a little cup of water and some paper towels for when you're painting. We're going to use some wiggle eyes. We're going to use some glue, some scissors, of course a pencil, and some CHNLL stems. So if you have all these supplies and you're ready to go, let's get started. Let's begin with our lion. So I'm going to open up my Model Magic and I'm going to tear off a piece. It's about this big and I'm going to roll it into a ball. And it's about the size of a golf ball, if you've ever seen a golf ball before, or a small little ball. So I'm gonna roll it sometimes on the table or sometimes in my hand, and I'm gonna knead the Model Magic and kind of get my hands on it, get it going, just kind of enjoy playing with that Model Magic for a little bit, and then rolling it into a ball. After I roll it into a ball, I'm gonna start by making the mane. So this mane is really like an oval. So I'm going to kind of smush it down like a pancake and make it into an oval shape. So I'm using my fingers and I'm pressing down on it, and I'm going to make it into the lion's mane by making it into an oval shape, kind of like this. So I'm using my fingers and I'm pressing it and I'm making this big shape right here that I'm going to put a little face into. And in order to make it look like a lion's mane, we're going to use our scissors. So we're going to use our scissors and we're actually going to cut into the clay some little slits. You can cut some of the pieces off if you want to. Take that away. Maybe take another one away, little triangle here, little triangle here. And you can cut some fringe to make that lion's mane. You can pull those out a little bit to make some hair go in different ways. And that's looking cool already. Love it. Okay, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep cutting some slits along the top. Pull out some different pieces. Kind of make some hair so that the lion has a cool looking style. I'm going to cut some more pieces. There you go. So you can cut as much hair or as little hair as you want to and make your lion have its very own personality. And I'm going to wrap the lion's head over top of my clay pot. So here's my clay pot and here's my lion's head, and I'm going to wrap it so that it has somewhere to kind of stick, and I'm pressing it down with my finger onto the clay pot. Now you might want to pull some more hair, so maybe I took some of these pieces of hair off and I can kind of put them up top here since I bent over the top. So I can have some more lion's mane at the top. And if you need a little bit more hair, you can always cut another little piece off and add it on. And so far that's looking pretty cool, looking pretty lion-like. So now we're going to make a little lion face. So I'm going to go back to my Model Magic and I'm going to pull off what kind of looks like the size of a quarter. And I'm going to roll it up into a ball, play around with it with my fingers and knead it for a little bit. And then I'm going to roll that into a ball again. I'm going to squeeze it down to make it into kind of like a little face shape. And so see how this face has a little chin? So I'm pinching with my thumbs to make kind of like a little point or a little chin. And then it's going to get wider up top here. I want 2 little ears. So I'm going to break off some Model Magic and I'm going to break it into 2. And I'm going to have 2 little ear pieces. Here's one. And here's another one. And when I make my ear, I'm going to pinch it with my 2 fingers. And I'm going to push it up with my thumb to make kind of like an ear shape. And attach it to the face. This one's a little ball too. So I'm going to pinch it between my 2 fingers. And then I'm going to push it up with my thumb. And I'm going to attach this ear. Now we also need a little bit of a nose. So I'm going to take just a little dab more, not too big at all. I'm going to add some round and make kind of like a nose and attach it in. That looks pretty good. And then I can put this face onto my mane. I can use my fingers and kind of smush it into the mane. I'm going to leave the little nose space a little bit bigger because I'm pinching it to make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to kind of carve out a mouth. So to carve out a little mouth underneath the nose, I'm going to use my pencil. And it's okay if a little bit of lead gets on your clay because we are going to go back through and paint that. But see how I'm making him have a little smile underneath his nose? That looks pretty good. And we're going to make a little bit of a divot for where the eyes are going to go. So I'm using the eraser to kind of push down a spot for each one of those 2 eyes. That looks pretty good so far. What do you think? There's its mouth. And if we need any more hair, we can add more hair. But this has got a pretty wild lion's mane. You can cut some more of this. I'm going to cut a little bit more off so I can add some extra hair up here again. And over here, I'm going to cut that little piece off and I'm going to add some extra hair right there. Look at how cool that looks. I love it. All right. So now that we have our lion's face, we're going to be able to do some painting. But before we do the painting, maybe you want to add a little tail. So the way that you can add a lion's tail is by taking another piece of Model Magic, maybe about this much. And I'm going to knead it for a little bit. And then I'm going to roll it. And that looks like a pretty good tail. But at the end of the tail, I'm going to make it kind of like a broom. So I'm going to pinch it down with my fingers to make it a little bit wider. And then I'm going to use my scissors and I'm going to make some cuts like I did before. And you can even cut a piece off if you want to add a little bit more hair to your lion. You can cut some of those pieces. You can kind of pinch them together to make different points, just to have a little bit of, at the end of the tail, have some hair. And then you can put the tail on the clay pot and you're going to bend over the tail. And you can bend it right next to your lion. You can smush it against the clay pot and you can smush it inside so that it stays. And we have a really nice looking lion. I'm going to poke a little, punch down a little bit with my pencil eraser to get a little indentation for my ears. And now my lion is ready to be painted. So I have a peach that I'm going to use for most of the mane. I have an orange that I'm also going to put into the mane. I'm going to have a pink face, and I'm going to use a little bit of black in order to do some extra little details. And also I'm gonna have some eyes so I can pick out what size eyes I wanna put into my lion's face as well. So I'm gonna open up the peach and I'm gonna start by kind of coloring all the mane and all of the hair. So I'm opening up my acrylic paint, and if it's the first time you've ever used the paint, they have a little seal on the top. So you can peel that off and then make sure you throw this away very carefully because it does have a lot of paint on it. So be careful with that. Then I'm gonna put these colors to the side, and here's my peach paint. I'm gonna dip my paintbrush in and I'm gonna start painting the lion's mane. And I'm using one of the bigger brushes because we have a lot of space that's gonna be hair. So I wanna cover a lot of space with this. Now I haven't let my Model Magic dry yet. So if you want to, you can wait until your Model Magic completely dries and then you can paint it. But what's nice about the Model Magic is you can actually paint it before it's dry too, which is kind of fun. Then you don't have to wait. So I'm going to be painting some of the mane, this nice light orange or peach color. And I'm also going to paint the tail this light orange. And I have all this fun hair going all over the place. He's got some extra hair up here looking pretty majestic. I like that hairstyle he's got going on, a little windblown. You can start thinking of a name for your lion. Here we go. Get more of that light orange paint all over the hair up top. I'm even going to go ahead and paint this orange inside too. Just having fun, putting my paint all over the place. And I'm going to go over some of the parts with the light pink, so it's okay if I get it a little bit on the face. I'm going to go over that in a little bit. And if we miss some spots, we can always use some of our other paint colors to cover that up too. So far he's looking good. I'm going to put my paintbrush into my water cup, and I'm going to use one of my other paintbrushes, and I'm going to use the light pink to start doing the face. But I'm going to come back to that peach. So I need to peel this off because it's the first time I'm using this pink color too. And I'm going to throw that away very carefully. And I'm going to use one of my other brushes. You can use the same brush if you want to, but I'm going to use one of my other brushes to go through and paint a pink face. Get inside that mouth and over top of the nose and the eyes. Looking good. Get those ears with that pink. There we go, across the top. And we're gonna glue the wiggle eyes into this. So we'll be doing that in just a little bit. Oops, they got a little bit of orange on there. There we go, I'll cover it up with some more pink. Excellent. Then I'm gonna go back with some of my peach, and I'm gonna add a little bit of peach into the ears. And add a little peach over here into the ears. Gonna put a little peach nose, kind of spread that a little bit, add a little bit of pink to the cheeks, maybe even a couple little brush strokes underneath the mouth. And I have some pink, so I'm gonna kind of blend that in by just using my paintbrush, kind of making that disappear. And then I'm gonna take the orange and I'm gonna start making some of the streaks along the mane to make the hair stand out different. So when I put my paintbrushes into the water cup, I'm gonna get some water on it, And then I like to paint on my napkin until the color starts disappearing. And when the color starts disappearing, then I know that it's safe for me to change colors because the old color is not on my paintbrush anymore. So now I'm gonna do some hair, some streaks. So I'm gonna draw lines from the face going down, just a couple different places. Dip back in my paint every once in a while. Cool. Show off some of that big long strips of hair. Maybe up top you do some shorter little strokes to get some of that cool flowing hair. Woo! That's fun. Couple more over here. Maybe some down here where the tail is. And you can add some more peach back in if you don't want as much of the orange. So I can go back next to some of that orange and I can add some more peach to kind of tame it a little bit. I'm taming the lion's hair just a tad. But I like it pretty wild and pretty crazy. That's fun. Awesome. Okay. Now I'm going to use just a teeny bit of black to do a little bit of details inside of the face. And I'm going to pick out my wiggle eyes. So I'm going to find two that are the same size that I like. Let's see if these two are the same size. Yep, those look pretty good. And I am going to use a little dab of glue, even though I have a little indentation. I'm going to take a little dab of glue and a little dab of glue to put these wiggle eyes into their places. There's one. Oops. And here's the other one. I'm going to take a little bit of my paintbrush, kind of get that glue. There you go. That looks pretty fun. And then I'm going to use a little bit of black to add some whiskers. The wiggle eyes make it pretty silly. I like that. Here's some black. And I'm going to add the whisker right here and right here. I'm going to add the little bit of nose. And kind of bring that nose line down so that it goes into the mouth. For right now, I'm going to make my mouth black. If you want to, you can make your mouth red, but I kind of like my mouth black. I'm also going to put a little bit of hair on this guy's face to kind of come down off that pink. So he's got a couple little pieces of hair dabbing down here. And I think we're just about done. So this looks really fun. I hope you're proud of your lion. And if you stick around, we're going to make the next one we're going to make is the elephant. So if you're interested in making the elephant, we can make that one together next. And just a couple little streaks here and there to add some fun. Feel free to make your lion's mane different colors than the colors that I picked, but you can make it majestic like this one with the bright orange and peach hair and the pink face. So this is the lion clay pot. Now I'm gonna get started on my elephant. So I'm gonna rip off a piece of Model Magic. It's a little bit smaller than the last piece we used for the lion's mane. And I'm gonna knead it for a little bit and squeeze it in between my fingers to get it going. And then I'm going to make the elephant's face by first rolling a ball. So you can roll the ball in your hands by moving your hands around like this, or you can roll it on your paper. Then I might smush it down a little bit, and I'm gonna pull on the bottom, and I'm gonna pull on the bottom in order to make my lion have a trunk, just like that. And then I'm going to push the top of the head and make this a little bit flatter because that's how I'm going to attach it to the top of my terracotta pot. So I'm going to bend the top of the elephant's head over top of the pot so that it has a place to hold on. Now, if your clay doesn't stick to your pot very well, you can always use glue and add a touch of glue to keep that nice and secure. Now I'm going to tear off another 2 little pieces to make my elephant ears. So here I'm putting this on a little plate. And this is the amount I tore off for the ears. So I'm going to make 2 ears that are about equal to each other. So I'm kneading them and playing with them in between my fingers. And then I'm going to start shaping them into elephant ears. So elephant ears are pretty big, so you want to push them down with your thumb and you want to make them kind of fun shapes. Maybe it's a little smaller at the top and a little bigger towards the bottom. And when you have an elephant ear that you kind of like, you can put some of it over the edge. You can put some of it kind of coming away from the pot. You can position your ear. You can pinch it back here to make some of it flop in the background. Then I'm going to try and make a similar ear using my other piece of clay, Model Magic. So I'm going to kind of smush it down into a little bit of an oval shape by pinching it and squeezing it. And then remember how we made the top kind of a little bit skinnier? So I'm pinching it together to make that part smaller and make the bottom part kind of wider. And that looks like a pretty good elephant ear too. So then I can attach this close to the head. I can put this over top of the pot, and then I can decide where I want to position my ear and push some of it down against the pot so that it kind of sticks to the pot. And look at that, I already have an elephant going on. So to make it look even more like an elephant, we're going to add some tusks and we're going to add some ears. So I'm going to use my pencil and I'm going to put 2 little divot spots, one here and one here, with the eraser of my pencil. And that's where I'm going to put my eyes. And then down here, I'm going to have this. So I have some blue CHNLL stems, but you can use whatever color you want to. So I'm going to use one of my blue CHNLL stems in order to make those tusks. So let me open these up and take out one. And you're definitely not going to need the whole thing. You're only going to need a little bit. So if I have a ruler, you don't have to measure it, but if you have a ruler, just about 1.5 inches is more than enough. So if you cut 3 inches, then you can fold it in half and you can have 2 pieces that are going to be the same. So I'm going to fold this in half and then I'm going to cut right here. And then your tusks are going to go kind of underneath here and underneath here by where you have your trunk. Now when we're painting this, we might want to remove our tusks so that we don't get paint on them, and then we can put them back at the end, but it's nice to have a spot for where the eyes and where the tusks go before we start painting so that we have a good idea of where we're going to put them. I'm ready to start painting my elephant, and I've selected some colors. I'm going to make my elephant this minty green color. I'm also going to use a little bit of this gray on the inside part of the ears. And then if you want to, you can also decorate the rest of the terracotta pot as well. So I have a couple of different blues that I can kind of decorate more of the pot. So before I paint, I'm going to take my tusks out, but I'm going to leave those holes so I know where they go. And I'm going to put my tusks over to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and open up my mint green and start painting my elephant with one of my big paintbrushes. So I'm just going to make big mint green paint strokes all over my elephant. Get all over his trunk or her trunk. And over the top, even where it goes into the pot. I'm gonna paint all of that with this mint green. You don't have to use mint green, so I hope you pick whichever color you like best. We have those nice spots for some big wiggle eyes that we'll add in with some glue in a little bit. But for now, I'm just gonna paint over top of it and cover all that up. Here's where the tusk goes later on. There's the other spot where the tusk goes. I have those spots ready for them to put those CHNLL stems back in. All right, I've got my face and the top. Then I'm gonna move on to the ears. So you can still, they're not dry yet, the Model Magic isn't dry yet, so you can still kind of position the ears. If they're not already touching your clay pot, you can pinch it down and have it touch the pot so that it sticks to the pot a little bit nicer when it dries. There's this. You can decide how you want to bend the ears, if you want to do something fun with them. I'm also going to paint this ear over here. There we go. And it looks like we're going to need to paint the back of the ears too, because we're going to be able to see them on our pot. So first I'll finish the inside part of the ear. Then I'll hold my pot in a different way so I can see the back of the ears. I'm going to paint all into here to where it touches the pot. And if you want the ears to stick all the way to the pot, then you don't have to paint the back of your ears. So you can make that choice too. Here we go. And over here, I'm going to paint on the back of these ears. Get them all minty green. And there we go. Looking good so far. I'm going to put my paintbrush into my water, and I'm going to use my gray paint next to make some little lines inside of the ears. Got a little paint on my hand. I'm gonna get this gray paint. There we go. And I'm gonna paint some gray part inside of the ear. So along the elephant's face, and then kind of go round towards the bottom and round towards the sides and make that little inside of his ear gray. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to kind of go along the same line of the elephant's face. And then when I get to about here, I'm going to start curving off to the side and curving up. And kind of making almost like a teardrop shape. And painting all of that in with my gray. Cool. And if you want to, you can make a couple of dots on the trunk. And if you want to make a couple of little like lines, they're not really whiskers, but a lot of times the elephants have some lines on their there we go, on their trunk. And maybe even a little line up here. I'm just adding some extra fun on mine right now. Kind of like the way that's looking. Okay, I'm ready for some eyes, and I'm ready for the tusks. So the tusks are just gonna go right back in there. They're pipe cleaner or CHNLL stems, so they stick right in there pretty easily. You can bend them and pose them around however you want to. Boop, there we go. And then I'm gonna pick some bigger eyes this time because I have a lot of space on my face. So I picked some wiggle eyes that are larger than the ones that I used before, and larger than the ones that I used on the lion. So I'm filling that glue in there, and I have a nice big space to put my eye, and another nice big space to put the other eye. And then I'm gonna decorate my pot a little bit. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. Love it. A little bit of paint, and that'll dry clear. Cute, 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 cute. Okay, I'm gonna do some paint around the rim. So I'm gonna use this darker blue. I'm gonna kind of push this guy off to the side because I think we know what we're doing now. And I'm gonna use this darker blue and I'm gonna go around the rim. And then I'm gonna add some extra polka dots too, just for fun. So I'm cleaning out this brush in my water, dipping it in the water, getting the water to kind of get some of the other color paint off. And then I like to paint my napkin until I can't see that color anymore so that I know that my paintbrush is nice and clean. I'm going to use this blue and I'm going to paint on the rim. And because the pot is like a terracotta color, which is like an orangey brown, a very earthy brown or earthy orange, your blue is going to show up a little different on it, but that's okay. It's just going to be a cool earthy blue. And I'm just going to paint this rim, making some long paint strokes going this way. Turn it around. Make some more long paint strokes going this way. There we go. I like it. A little bit more. Get to the back of the elephant's ear. There we go. Nice long brush strokes. There we go. I like all of my paint strokes to try and go, my brush strokes to try and go in the same direction so that when they dry, they look nice and neat. And if you want to, you can let it dry and add another layer if you want to see that color show up even more. We can also make some polka dots. So I'm going to change to one of my other colors to make some polka dots. And I actually think I'm going to use some white. I didn't think I was going to use white before, but I think white's going to be fun. So I'm going to use this. And I can use one of the ends of one of my paint brushes to dip into the white. Then I can make boop, 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 different size dots. So sometimes when I go real light, I make a very small dot. And when I go really big, I make a larger dot. So sometimes I'm barely touching the pot, and sometimes I'm touching the pot a lot, making a bigger dot. You can also use the eraser of your pencil as long as you don't mind messing up your eraser. But once you put some paint over top of your eraser, you're not going to be able to use your eraser the way you used to anymore. So be careful about that. Cute. Let's do a couple on the front. I love it. Maybe one right here. And we look like we're good. So we just finished our clay pot elephant with all these cute spots. And we got the little tusks and the trunk. So our elephant is now done. Now it's time to make our snake. So I'm going to take another piece of Model Magic that's about the size of like smaller than a golf ball, maybe like a ping pong ball. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to knead it in my fingers for a little bit and play with it and get it nice and ready to work with. And then I'm going to roll it into a really long line. So I'm rolling it on the table and I'm moving my hands back and forth. And while I'm moving my hands back and forth, this long clay coil is coming. And this is what we're going to turn into our snake. So I'm going to try and keep the clay coil even. So if you see some parts that are a little bit bigger, you want to roll right there to make it match up with the other size. If something's a little bit thicker, you want to roll right there. If something's already pretty skinny, you don't want to roll there anymore because you've already done a lot of rolling right there. So this coil that I'm making is probably longer than my ruler. So I'm going to go a little bit longer than my ruler, maybe a couple more inches. And then I'm going to have a nice long snake to wrap around my clay pot. So let me put this guy to the side, and I'm going to take my clay pot. I'm going to start here. I'm going to push the tail down. I'm going to wrap it around the bottom. And then I'm going to take this and come up here, and I'm going to drape it over the side like I did with some of my other animals. And so that's the body of the snake. I'm going to attach it to my clay pot. And later on, if this starts falling off, you can always use some more glue in order to put more of your snake onto your pot. There we go. And then I'm going to make a head. So I'm going to take another little piece, probably about this much, maybe like a little quarter size. I'm going to knead it, and I'm going to turn it into a head for my snake. So for the head for my snake, I'm going to smush it down a little bit. There we go, and make it kind of an oval shape. And then I'm going to attach it so that some of the head is going to go over the top of the pot to hold on to it, and some of the head is going to stay on this side of the pot. And you can blend those pieces together so it looks like one continuous snake. And I might need to add some glue because it seems like this guy's sliding a little bit. He's a slippery snake. And then I have a really nice snake shape. I'm going to cut a little piece of CHNLL stem to make a tongue. So probably about an inch is more than enough, because I'm going to stick it in here. And just like we did with the elephant tusk, I'm probably going to take it back out when I'm going to start painting, but I'm going to leave it there for now. And then you can decide if you want like a profile where you just see one eye of your snake, or if you want to put two eyes of your snake. You can do it either way. But like I was doing before, I'm going to use the eraser on my pencil to kind of give me a spot to put that eye. So maybe I have an eye here and an eye here. That's where the tongue is going to go. I think I'm going to go ahead and put some glue so that I can have that have a chance to dry a little bit, and I can keep my snake where I want him to go. So I'm putting some glue around where the clay is to keep the clay and the snake together. Here's a little bit more glue over here. Keep that clay where I want it to be. And now we're just about ready to start painting. So think about what colors you want to paint your snake. I'm going to put this guy right here, and I'm going to pick 2 different colors of green. And just like we did for our elephant, I'm also probably going to paint more of the pot. So maybe I want some other colors to help me decorate the pot. So here's a black, here is a dark green, and here is a light green. And maybe I'm going to use that white again. Who knows? Maybe I'll use yellow. I'll kind of decide as we go. All right, so when I start painting, I probably want to take the tongue out of the snake's mouth again and put it off to the side. So we'll come back to you, buddy. And then I want my water cup and I want my paint brushes so that I'm ready to start painting. So I'm going to start with my light green paint, and I'm going to go ahead and paint my whole snake using this light green. Let me put my other paints off to the side, and I'm going to open this one up and use one of my big paint brushes and start painting over the snake's face. And this is where our tongue is going to go. We took our tongue out so that we don't get any extra paint on it. This is where our eyes are going to go. We left some room for our wiggle eyes. And right now I'm just going to start painting this guy green, giving him a good coat of green. You don't have to use green if you don't want to. Maybe your snake is going to be purple, or maybe your snake is going to be gray. So you can decide whatever color snake you want to make and do that. I'm going to do a green snake, and then I'm going to pick another color, probably the dark green, and I'm going to make some more lines and stripes and designs on my snake. So I'm just going to go around the coil. He's got a tight squeeze on this pot, and that glue is helping. I'm just going to paint all of his body this light lime green. I'm going to paint some of this part green too, where I'm seeing more of that white. Then there's the overlap of the snake's body because it curled all the way around the whole entire pot. And then we started going up the pot and added a face to our snake. So I'm going to get the whole body this nice light green. Excellent. Let's see, I missed a little bit right in there. The snake's head is peeking into the terracotta pot. There we go. Looks good. Gonna make a long line all the way down so that it looks like one continuous snake line. Go all the way around over here. There we go. I can still see some white on this side, so I'm going to add a little bit more. Looking pretty good. All right, I'm ready. Now I'm going to add some design onto my snake. So I'm going to use the darker green, but you don't have to use this one. You can use whatever color you want. Looks like I've never used this color, so I'm going to take off the little protective seal, and I'm going to carefully throw it away because it's got paint all over it. And then I'm going to do some stripes. So on this snake, I painted the stripes going one way. I'm going to kind of paint the stripes going a different way this time. So instead of doing a dashed line, I'm going to do the lines going across the snake's body. You can do a zigzag, you can do stripes. I might also add another color. I'm going to keep going down the body and add lots of cool stripes. It wraps all the way around the clay pot. Excellent. There we go. Almost back to the beginning. It's a long snake, you know? It's a long snake. Got a little bit more right here. There we go. Ooh, very cool. Maybe a little marking on the back of the neck going across. Maybe one right here too. Excellent. I think I'm going to add a little bit right there where the tongue is eventually going to be. I think that looks pretty cool. Now I'm kind of feeling this snake. I think this snake's pretty cool, so I think I want to add a little bit more yellow to it. So I'm going to take my yellow, and I think I'm going to try and make a couple of stripes with the yellow too, in between the dark green ones. And notice how my stripes are a little bit smaller this time. They don't all have to be the same. And I'm kind of going in between the dark green with a little bit of yellow. I like the way that looks. Cool. Back to where it overlaps. Excellent. Maybe a little bit more up here. Then I think I'm pretty good. Let's see. Ooh, nice. A little bit of yellow here, a little bit of yellow here. And then I think the snake is looking like he's ready for his tongue. So I'm gonna take the red CHNLL stem, gonna stick it in here, give it a tongue. And I'm also going to find some smaller wiggle eyes and my glue. So let's find 2 wiggle eyes that are the same size. Here's 2 of them. I'm going to put a little bit of glue in each one of the little indentations I made with my pencil eraser. I'm going to put the wiggle eyes into the little spaces. Nice. There we go. Now our snake has some eyes. Looks pretty cool. And if you want to paint the pot, you can paint the rim like we did last time. You can add some different designs. So I'm going to make a couple more dot designs. Since I already have my yellow and I really like the yellow, I'm going to make the dots with the paintbrush side of my paintbrush this time. So I'm putting some yellow paint on my brush, and I'm just going to do a little couple of round strokes to make things that look like polka dots all over my pot. So I'm just kind of moving my brush around in a little circle and making some dots of paint. If you want to use the other side of your paintbrush again, you can. Or if you want to just kind of dot your paintbrush like we did before, you can do that too. And then I think I'm going to put some of the dots up here too, so they don't have to be in a perfectly straight line. You can put them in some different places. There we go. Watch out for your snake's head. Don't get too close to that tongue. There we go. If you want to use other colors, you can, but I really like this yellow. I think it looks sharp on my pot. So here we go. I just finished my snake terracotta clay pot. So today I was able to make 3 different pots. I made a lion, I made an elephant, and I made a snake. I hope you're able to make these clay pots too, and I hope you come back and take more of our Camp Creatology classes. See you soon.